Hello everyone and welcome back to the strawberry fields. We have a speed build for I think the first time ever on this channel. I have to double check, but I think so. And it's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I'm really happy that I finally got around to doing it. I really wanted to build something that kind of felt like my childhood and live in a way that, was similar to it, that I could express myself, kind of romanticize it in a way. I want to first preface, I'm not romanticizing what it actually is, but just how I felt growing up living in it. So this is based off of a post-communist building in Poland, specifically, I'm not going to tell you specifically because that would be silly, but in Poland, if you go to the city, you'll see these apartments that have no color, there's no life, they're kind of drained and ugly, and it's just not nice to look at, and it makes you feel depressed in every way possible. And I really wanted to make a save file where I get to live like a Slav. I wanted a Slavic world, and that's what we're going to be doing in this save file. I am going to be making 8 apartments, but of course the limit is 6. So in this video we're just doing the exterior and kind of the layout of the apartments, along with putting the ovens and the bathroom, because that's what every base apartment should look like. And yeah, I never actually lived in one of these apartments. All of my aunts lived in them, and I would visit them all the time. But it's still very significant to me how honestly how this was set up, how I lived as a kid, how the idea of you have to live together as a community and work together to bring back what Poland used to be and what Poland should be. So I'm going to tell you guys some facts about post-communist Poland, along with how communism actually affected Poland. So just to kind of preface, there was a Soviet background that started in after World War II, and Poland fell to Soviet influences, and a communist government loyal to Moscow was imposed. And this was despite very strong domestic opposition. There was a lot of loss of political freedom, and Poland became a one-party state under the Polish United Workers' Party, and any opposing parties were suppressed, and all elections were rigged or were just symbolic. While the Russians had the KGB, the Polish had their own secret service called the UBSB, which, did the same thing the KGB did. They monitored citizens, arrested people, censored speech, used intimidation, imprisonment, and oftentimes used torture to maintain control. There was a large censorship of media and the arts. Newspaper, books, films, and educations were heavily censored and had to align with the communist ideology and Soviet interest. All factories, banks, and major businesses were taken over by the state, and private enterprise was severely limited or completely eliminated. There were a lot of attempts were made to, collectivize farms, but Poland resisted more successfully than other Eastern Bloc countries due to a very strong rural opposition and a heavy Catholic influence. The central planning led to a chronic shortage of food, housing, and consumer goods, so long lines and rationings were common, especially in the 1970s to 80s. And speaking about the Catholic influence, there was a large suppression of religion. The Catholic Church was viewed as a threat, and church property was seized, clergy were harassed or imprisoned, and religious education was restricted, though the church remained a powerful social force. Education, reshaped by ideologies, schools, universities, emphasized Marxism, Leninism, Leninism, Soviet history, and loyalty to the party, often at the expense of Polish history and independent thought. You were not allowed to travel. There were constant strikes that were completely ignored or just completely just destroyed. There were martial law. There was cultural resistance, of course. There was underground publishing, music, theater, and art flourished, but it was quiet. It was made to resist the regime. There was eventually a economic collapse in 1980s because of debt. There was an inefficiency and mismanagement that led to a severe inflation and declining living standards. At the end of the communist rule, around 1989 to 1990, some people say it was actually to 2003. There was this round table talks between the government, and solidarity led to semi-free elections, marking a peaceful collapse of communism in Poland. So what does post-communist Poland actually look like now? Well, first and foremost, Poland became the first Eastern country to peacefully transition away from communism. Poland then eventually adopted a multi-party democratic system with free elections, an independent parliament, and a presidency. In 1997, Poland created a new constitution called the Constitution of the Republic of Poland, which guaranteed civil liberties and separation powers. The market economy was introduced, and Poland shifted from a central planned economy to a market-based one, allowing private ownership, entrepreneurship, and foreign investment. There was a rapid reform in the early 90s called the Berezowicz Plan, which stabilized inflation and privatized state industries through the initially caused unemployment and social inequality. The economic growth was a success. There was a rise of private enterprise, like small businesses, and modern banking system expanded rapidly. The unemployment, the transition caused factory closures and job losses, especially in the industrial and rural regions, creating long-term regional disparities, which eventually changed, but it did take a few years. There was an improvement of, standard living. It became more long-term because there was an access to consumer goods, housing quality, and wages improved significantly compared to the communist era. The freedom of speech and press returned, the end of censorship. There was a cultural revival. Polish history, art, religion, traditions suppressed under the communist regime experienced renewed public expression, and this led to a very strong role of the Catholic Church. And then the NATO membership in 1999, it signaled a definitive shift from Russian influence and toward Western security structures. And then the European Union membership in 2004, which, allowed the freedom of movement for Polish citizens across the EU. The large-scale immigration that Poles went through from moving to Western Europe, like UK, Germany, and Ireland for work, and that really what pushed the joining of the EU. Cities like Warszawa, which is the capital, Kraków, and Gdańsk modernized rapidly with new infrastructure, business districts, and cultural institutions. Post-communist Poland had seen sharp political divides over nationalism, EU relations, and judicial independence and social issues. It was like this ongoing political polarization, which you can kind of see to this day. Debates over lustration, which is screening former communist collaborators. There was historical memory and national identity continued. It was like a reckoning to the communist past. And then, which led to this strained relation with Russia. Poland remains deeply wary of Russian influence due to the historical occupation and the Cold War experience. And if you ask a Pole to this day, they will tell you they will not and nor will ever trust a Russian. So there are some facts to kind of keep in mind while I'm making this. At no point do I want to romanticize the actual pain that Poland went through with communism. I grew up in a family where we kind of like, being in a community was very important, but the way that Poland suffered because of this community is very apparent, and I had to grow up constantly being worried about how close to the government I could be. Which feels like an insane thing to say, especially for like a 4 or 5-year-old who mainly grew up in the US. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Poland. It's my best memories are there. And the main reason I want to make these apartments is for nostalgic reasons. I want to do some gameplay in them. I want to, have someone grow up in what I grew up in, especially like with this architecture. This like socialist realism was the official style from like the 40s throughout the 60s. This architecture had to be, monumental, symmetrical, and it had to be like quote unquote optimistic, which meant to glorify workers in the state. But the only way you could really do that was to make everything look the same. And the only way you can, successfully do that is to keep it in these dull, lifeless colors. Buildings were designed as propaganda. The structures emphasize strength, order, and the collectivism rather than the individuality. Warsaw was rebuilt under the communist ideology. It used to be an extremely colorful, city before the Soviets came in and, deconstructed and reconstructed everything. After World War II, it destroyed almost all of the city. The Soviets' gift to Poland, this like Stalinist skyscraper in Warsaw, symbolized like Soviet dominance and remains one of the most controversial buildings in the country. It's called the Palace of Culture and Science. It was built in 1955. This like large-scale housing block, which I think I said before, it's called the blokowiska, which is just block. It's like this prefabricated concrete apartment complexes where they were built nationwide to quickly house the growing urban population. And something that each of these blocks would have is like a little like playground, which I was really excited to build with the new like pack that came out. It's not even new, it came out it came out in December. Anyways, yeah. The same buildings design appeared in like Warszawa, Kraków, Łódź, Katowice, Gdańsk, and it created this visual uniformity. Places like Nowa Huta, which is near Kraków, were built from scratch as ideal socialist worker cities. The wide avenues, massive squares, and parade routes were designed for state ceremonies and demonstrations. So like these public spaces reinforced this ideology. Because of the limited religious architecture, the church constructions were restricted. Especially in like early communist period, religious buildings were rare in like new development, which is why if you ever visit Poland, I highly recommend seeing some of the churches because you can really see what Poland used to look like before the Soviet influence. The brutalist influence continued on throughout the 70s though. Like later communist architecture shifted toward like raw concrete forms. And it was poor materials and they aged rapidly. Like many buildings deteriorated quickly due to like the low quality construction and this lack of maintenance. Like the state did not care. And this led to a lot of post-communist reevaluation. Some communist-era buildings are now protected as historical landmarks, while others were demolished or renovated. There's this emotional legacy, and it's a whole thing. It's a modern reuse and adaptation, and I absolutely love like what Poland is doing now in like rebuilding and fixing things up, and I understand why some of it is preserved because it is historically important. But I just have this intense hatred for these buildings. They are the ugliest things in the world, and I hate looking at them. They make me depressed and I'm mad. You'll see me putting some flowers down. I'm trying to like make it more lively. In reality, these buildings would have like no flowers. All of the gardens you would see by these buildings were held by the people living in here, which also led to another problem. You could not have a garden without the apartment's permission. So every single person in that apartment needed to approve, along with a person who was tasked with maintaining it. Then the city had to approve, then the state, and then the head government, which meant like Moscow, the Soviets. Like, it was a whole process just to be able to grow like some potatoes, even flowers. Like, it's not just about food. It was like about just the little things. Like, you couldn't grow a patch of like soft grass for your cattle without the permission of everyone around you, which actually led to a few problems. A lot of like jealous farmers would say no to letting like their next door neighbor, which is most likely their cousin, to be able to grow, like to be able to make good quality cheese. So there was a lot of like tension that was created because of the communism. It, at the end of the day, really broke apart families rather than enforce them. You'll find people, almost every single Polish person is against communism. It was against what the Soviets did, but you will find people who were like all for it, who wanted it to continue on, who saw only the good in it. And that caused like a lot of like infighting in family. A lot of these people would go to Moscow and never be seen again. There's a family story where I had an uncle who went to Moscow and we hadn't heard from him in years. Like, everyone thought he had passed away or that he was thrown into a gulag of sorts. And a few years later, we get an email saying like, hey, I'm alive, I'm still here, I'm sorry for what I've put you through. And it was just like this wave of relief, like, oh my god, like, my uncle is still alive. Like, one of my aunts were like, oh my, like, my brother is still here, I can still be considered a sister. And it's just like, communism was set up to help the community, but instead fractured the family. And that's very important to keep in mind while I'm kind of building this, because I'm going to make Sims to live in these apartments, and I'm going to be planning stories where like no one in here is like happy. That Slavic stare that's so popular is there for a reason. Like, no one in Eastern Central Europe was happy because of communism. Everyone suffered because of the Soviets. And I want to show what kind of pain like my family and these people have to go through from day to day. And yeah, of course I'm going to romanticize it because this was my childhood. This is what I grew up as like with and all of that. And I don't know, I'm just very excited to actually get in and build the actual rooms that these people will be living in and eventually make these Sims. I do have a few storylines, like ideas, and I'm just excited to get into it. And I hope you guys enjoy this speed through so far. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of end it here because the rest is just like, it's just repetitive. But I'm going to go ahead and list the actual building up on the gallery. I'll go ahead and like put it down in the description below where you can find it, like my tag or the name of the apartments. Actually, the name of this video is going to be the name of the build. But yeah, so if you're interested, take a look. I'm gonna leave it kind of unfurnished so that you can decide what you want to do to it. But I do plan on doing 1 or 2 more speed builds of how I want like it to look like. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a nice day. remember to leave a like and subscribe for whatever else I get into. Alrighty, bye!